Welcome to Beyond Transcripts, the podcast for educators who want to meet and exceed best practices in transcripts and education management. On today's episode of Beyond Transcripts, we're talking all about change. As administrators, change is probably a regular part of your job, and yet it may not be one of the easiest. However, change is important even when you're uncertain. Having courage as a leader can be tough, but being willing to push through that gives you an edge over other schools. Today, we'll talk about tips for how to make changes happen, how to push through some of that discomfort, and the importance of being decisive. Education is changing, it's evolving, and it's important to know that continuing to change and evolve with it is what will help you continue your growth and help set you apart from other programs. We'll also discuss how Transcript Maker can fit into making some of the changes that are hard, save you time, save you energy, and help make your processes a bit more smooth. Hi, Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Sarah. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, Matt, you and I know change is hard, right? But it's necessary, especially in education. Things are evolving, things are changing, and it's important for schools to keep up, even though it might be hard. So we also know that it's administrators that are typically the agents of change. I mean, we see students doing amazing things, right? And they can make changes happen. But from a school level, it's the administrators that have to really take charge and make change happen. And that can be a challenging position to be in. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So what sorts of changes might administrators be responsible for that can be a bit uncomfortable as well?
Well, administrators are in charge of pretty much everything at the school, right? So lots of different areas of change that they get to experience, from stuff as basic as just choosing the equipment and the classroom resources that they're going to use, helping teachers structure their curriculum to meet, any state mandates. But I think really the biggest change that's been taking place over the past 10 years has certainly been the movement towards distance education and putting more and more classes online. So that's just been huge because there have been a lot of schools who haven't had any online presence, and now suddenly they're faced with this tidal wave of people wanting to study online. And they have to decide, are we going to start offering some online classes? How many classes are we going to offer online? How is it going to work? Can we use existing staff to do this, or do we need to bring on new staff to work on this? That's been one area that's been prompting a lot of change in this in this whole field over the past 10 years or so.
Yeah, and that can be really uncomfortable. I actually worked at a university in a program as a faculty member, and we were told our program was going online. And I remember it was very uncomfortable for all of us, from the chair of our program to the faculty who were going to be responsible for all of this. And it really did take a lot for us to get on board. But you're right. I mean, and this was almost 10 years ago now. But you're right that this is the direction that schools are going. And to keep up and be competitive and help give their students a good experience, that's definitely one of the big changes that's necessary. And yeah, as an administrator, you're the one leading the way. And if you're uncertain, that can trickle down and everyone else becomes uncertain about it. So why is it important? I mean, we've already touched on it, but just in general, why is it important to make changes and push through that uncertainty?
Well, improvement doesn't happen without the risk of change. So, change has to happen if your school is going to get better. It is difficult. It takes courage, but that's part of exerting leadership, is having the courage to be decisive and make certain changes. Being willing to make these changes can give you an edge over other schools that just aren't willing to do it. If you're in a growth mode and you're trying to bring on new students, being brave with what you change can often be a catalyst for that kind of thing. Continuing the status quo, that makes growth less likely to occur. because I mean, it's easy. It's the easy path. Everyone can just sit there and keep doing what they're doing, but you need to be different. You need to step up and make these changes and make things happen.
Yeah, I love what you said about needing to be brave. And I feel like it's one thing, within your school environment to make changes, but it's also hard to make that leap with technology sometimes and trust in different ways of using software or, less than traditional products to help support your school. So can you speak a little bit about that, the technology aspect that might require change from administrators?
Yeah. Technology is huge, because it's complicated, and it requires certain skills to take full advantage of the technology. But at the same time, it can be so powerful for your school, leveraging some of these new software platforms. Like a lot of schools now are, deciding whether to take the leap into investing in a school information system. So especially if you're a smaller or medium-sized private school, this might be something that you're looking at. A lot of the larger schools are already using something. These software packages, they do a heck of a lot for the schools, from admissions to grading to transcripts. But they can be pretty expensive and complicated and difficult to understand. So when you're evaluating a program like that, it's important to find people who either have done that kind of evaluation before and know what to look for and know how to advise you, or find other mentors at schools similar to yours who are already using a system like that and can tell you, what the benefits are to it, where you might run into some problems adapting it to work at your school. But technology is certainly not an easy thing to tackle. So you definitely need to reach out for help.
Yeah, and get support, because there are other people who've gone through it before you. And especially with technology also evolving and changing so quickly, that it is important to stay current and to connect with others who are using the platforms that you might consider using. And we'll touch on this, but Transcript Maker is another way that people can sort of streamline a bit, can use technology, but maybe not in sort of that big, more expensive way of a full-on school information system, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, what Transcript Maker offers is a way for these small and medium schools to start leveraging software in a certain aspect of what they do, and start reaping some of the benefits for a relatively low cost. It's sort of a way that they can dip their toe in the deep end without like diving in completely. So it offers, one part of what a full-blown school information system offers.
Yeah, and I like that, because the question I have for you next is sort of, what can administrators do to make these changes happen, make it a little easier? And so what I'm hearing you say is, you can start in some ways a little smaller, and even maybe a little more appropriately for the needs of your school. So can you talk a little bit more about that, about maybe some best tips for administrators who are looking to make the change and maybe are a little nervous or feel like they don't have the resources to do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I found it helpful, just set aside time, even just 15 minutes a day, to begin implementing some of these changes. It's easy to sit around thinking about changing and never do anything. But, just setting aside 10 or 15 minutes a day where you sit down, you say, okay, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I'm evaluating. I'm going to spend some time reading about it. I'm going to spend some time thinking about it. And, you don't have to rush anything. But just, give yourself freedom to experiment. Change, you don't have to achieve perfection right off the bat. A lot of times change happens if you just start making a small adjustment and you keep adjusting until something happens. So like when it comes to Transcript Maker, just sitting down and trying the free trial, for example, just getting into the system and finding out how it works. You can always give us a call if you have any questions about the system, or even if you want somebody to just give you a live demo, to kind of walk you through and show you what what the system is capable of. I mean, we can do that in 15 minutes easily. So that's always an option. And, like I mentioned before, try to get a mentor, like another successful school administrator. Really, if you're running a private school, it is kind of like a business. So even a business mentor would be helpful. And, bring your concerns, your fears, your anxieties to your mentor, and they can kind of help you work through those things. And, reading success stories from other successful schools, that can be helpful. And, there are a lot of podcasts out there like this one. And, listening to that can be another way to kind of catalyze that change and help you deal with it on an emotional level.
Yeah, you've got some great tips in there, both very practical, right? Sit down and just spend 15 minutes a day. If you've got more, that's great, but it doesn't take a lot of time. But if you're doing that each day, you're intentional about it, you're planning, you're researching, you're preparing, you can make those smaller steps really turn into something big. And I think a lot of times we get overwhelmed by change because it does feel so big. And so if you break it down into small bite-sized pieces, it makes it more manageable. It can feel a little more reasonable and less overwhelming. So I think that's really, really helpful. And then, like you said, sort of for the more mental, stressed out aspects of it, to have someone that you can talk to have that mentor, to have someone who has been through it and can support you. I'm wondering, obviously, the administrator, they're high up, right? They may be at the top of, sort of their school and how things go. What about how they can get other people on board to making changes, right? Maybe it's the administrator who thinks, for example, transcript maker, this makes complete sense for us. We want to have nicer looking transcripts. We want to represent our school well, but they're not the person who actually does the transcripts, right? So now they kind of have to sell it to someone else. So do you have any tips for that of getting people on board with the changes that are best for your school?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because a lot of times in our experience in the past, it's actually been the teachers, the administrative staff who have been responsible for selling the school administrator on Transcript.
So then tips for the administrator to stay open when when the teachers come and say, we need a better way.
Yeah, but no, I mean, if you're a school administrator and you've found a new software package and you want your people to evaluate it, just give it to them. I mean, they're the ones who know their jobs best, and they're going to be able to tell you if that's actually going to be saving them any time or not. And by and large, software will create time savings as long as it's flexible software that can adapt to the changing needs of your school, and as long as the software is not going to lock you into doing things a certain way. Which there are some platforms out there that do that, and that's certainly not what you want to invest in. If the software you're buying is actually less flexible than, for example, using a Google spreadsheet, then that's not going to get you where you need to be. But yeah, in our experience, it hasn't taken a lot of convincing. So
that's good, right? You've got something that helps, saves money, saves time. Any other tips and I guess that's either on the teacher side, trying to come to the administration with some changes that maybe feel uncomfortable to the administrators, or, administrators saying, not everyone in school is going to be on board with this certain change. For example, like the online classes, right? I feel like there might be some pushback in this. Any other tips to get people to rally and get on board with an idea that feels a little less than comfortable?
Yeah, again, just taking your time, not trying to rush through things is important. Letting people adjust, and just asking for feedback too. When people feel heard, then change is easier because they feel like decisions aren't being made without their input. They feel more in control of the decisions. So those are good things to do. When it comes to Transcript Maker itself, adopting Transcript Maker, try the free trial, let your people try it. Don't rush. Continue building transcripts the way you have been, and then pick one or two people to use Transcript Maker to build those same transcripts, and then you can compare the results and see right there, if you want to stick with what you've been doing or if you want to try to to use a new solution. Compare how long it takes doing it the old way versus the new way. Reach out to us. We have email, phone. We'd be happy to do a live demo. We're happy to help you through the onboarding process too. A lot of people, schools come to us and they're worried because they have an existing template they've been using for years, and they don't necessarily want to switch to our product because the template initially looks different. But we can design custom templates that match your old template, so you don't have to. That's one area where you don't have to change. If you like your existing template and you want to stick with it, we can design a new template that works with our system that looks the same as your old one. So feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help you.
Yeah, that's great. So it may not be as huge of a change as you envision. There might be some ways to keep some of the more traditional ways that you've done things and stay in a little bit of your comfort zone while pushing yourself into something that could actually save you time, save you money, represent your school in a more positive fashion. And so obviously, yeah, you guys are very supportive of the free trial and helping people when they sort of come on board. Are there any other tips to get through that process smoothly? So if someone who is taking advantage of the first 14 days, any little sticking points that you tend to see with people, that you could kind of give our listeners little tips for when they try that out?
Yeah, initially when people sign up, since we do have a default template that gets assigned to your free trial. A lot of times people immediately see the new template and they're like, oh, this isn't what I've been used to seeing. I don't want to use it. But like I said, there's a great deal of flexibility in the software, and not all of it is accessible to the customer. A lot of times we work with these schools on a one-on-one basis to customize the software to meet their specific needs. So try not to jump to any conclusions. Give it the full 14 days. If you're having any questions whatsoever, reach out to us and we'd be happy to help.
Yeah, it's probably what the administrators and the teachers are telling their students, right? Something new feels uncomfortable. You got to stick with it. You got to push through it. And I think us on the other side, we're like, nope, too hard, too different. I'm good where I'm at. And so, yeah, I think it's important to remember that there might be more or different capabilities than you're first aware of. And that, again, change can be uncomfortable. And you have to push through that, or you have to be willing to push through that, be brave, like you said, to get to the other side of things and see what can be different, what can be improved. And the bottom line is, generally speaking, you can go back to what you were doing before if it doesn't work out. But you need to give yourself enough time, like you said, to get in there, to try things out, to check in with the team at Transcript Maker if something needs to maybe look a little different or you have questions, because change can be really good, and especially education. In some ways, it's the name of the game. Things continue to change and evolve, and if you want your school to stay relevant and be a school that students want to continue to go to, sometimes even if you're not ready, you have to embrace those changes.
Absolutely. Yep.
So before we finish up, any other final thoughts on administrators being the agents of change? Any other tips, final thoughts for them? Words of encouragement?
Yeah, just don't give up. Hang in there. Keep trying to make these changes happen, because it will be worth it in the end. Schools are all across the country are changing more rapidly than ever now. And you don't want to be left behind. So you want to make sure that you're finding good sources for new information, whether that's, like I mentioned, mentors, friends at other schools who are working in the administrative department. Try to stay abreast of the changes that are happening, and try not to get left behind. It's a full-time job, but it's kind of what you signed up for. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And we would encourage people to push themselves out of their comfort zone a little bit and make some of those changes. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Beyond Transcripts, where we talked all about change and why it's important even if you're feeling uncertain. We hope you now feel a little more inspired and have a few more ideas for how to make that change happen, even if you're not feeling super comfortable about it. And don't forget to sign up for your free trial of Transcript Maker along with our free newsletter. You can learn more about both at transcriptmaker.com.